This video is going to be discussing the potential of a future Texas winter storm causing a similar catastrophe to what we faced in 2021. The video is broken down into 4 parts. The first one is me sharing some of my anecdotal personal experiences. The second one, we're going to take a look at a couple of articles. The third, we're going to be discussing the ERCOT grid. And the fourth, we're going to be discussing some of your options for preparing for a future disaster like this. So let's get started. Greetings and welcome to Austin, Texas Gardening. Today I'm going to be addressing the question that is the title of the video: will there be a Texas winter storm in 2022? So I know it's in all of our recent memories how bad things got last year. I was very lucky enough to only be impacted by the rolling blackouts. My wife and I tried to stay warm at home, but I know that a lot of people had it worse than we did last February when we got, I think the actual record was 6.5 inches of snow, which is what I read on the KV website. We measured 8 inches at my home in Northeast Austin. I know that we had rolling blackouts for almost a week and a half. I had friends that were coming to my house to take showers and were just severely impacted by the situation. I know there was loss of life as well, so I don't mean to make light of that situation by any means. And I know this video is a little clickbaity. I'm making this video because I've had friends and family ask me about this question, and for the record, I'm a software engineer and this is a gardening YouTube channel. I am not a meteorologist. I'm not, a climate change scientist. I'm not speaking about this with the type of authority that somebody could. I'm simply speaking about this as a native Austinite. I'm nearly 30 years old and I grew up in South Austin, so I've seen a lot of Austin winters, and I kind of wanted to give some of my thoughts and opinions on what we might be expecting this winter. So just to be very clear and say it, I do not know. I have no idea what the future holds, and I have no idea what kind of winter we might get this winter. What I have seen is a pattern over the past couple of years that I think is kind of interesting, and I think that it's better to be safe than sorry as far as being prepared for a winter storm like this. So I want to take us back to the winter of 2021, so February 2021. I have lived in Austin, like I said, pretty much my whole life, and I've never seen lows like we were seeing in the forecast in mid-February. I recall either the 14th or the 15th, I believe it was the 15th, the low was 1 degree Fahrenheit for that day. Now, previous to that, the lowest I'd ever heard of when I was a kid, maybe in 2004, 2008, it would get down to be like 17 degrees, but most of my summers growing up, I remember one year my family got a trampoline for Christmas and we set it up and jumped on it on Christmas Day. Typically the entire winter was very warm and there would be maybe one light freeze throughout the entirety of the winter. So obviously last winter was not like that at all. Our first freeze of the winter was on December 1st, and then it was freeze after freeze after freeze with an 1.5 inches of snow in January, and then the big winter storm in February, which I thought was really strange. So my wife moved down to Texas about 3 years ago now, and I recall that when I mentioned, man, this is a low at 1 degree with multiple days of snow. This is super atypical for Austin. She had said, don't be worried, it's no big deal. We see this up north all the time. And I recall that like the past 4 or 5 years, really, I feel like we've gotten light snow and just freeze after freeze after freeze almost all winter, which again is super different from what I experienced when I was a kid. We would have many winters where it would almost never freeze at all. My mother was also an avid gardener, and we would often move her plants into the garage when there was going to be a freeze, and I recall only doing that maybe twice. But at this point, I've got all the pineapples and avocados in the garage with a grow lamp because I am just anticipating there's going to be freezes, inclement weather, etc. But I'm making this video today just to discuss what might happen this winter and what you can do to be prepared for it. So I have a whole bunch of different news articles that I pulled up that we're going to take a look at right now. But before I get into those, I just kind of wanted to lightly discuss what to do if you see this type of inclement weather in the forecast. If you look at the forecast and it says the low is 9 degrees and it's going to snow. I made a video last winter where I just kind of explained filling up the bathtub with water is a great first step, because with these rolling blackouts, Obviously, if your water pump is not being powered, you're not going to have water to your house. If your pipes are burst, which is unrelated to power, you're not going to have water to your house. And filling up the bathtub with water isn't even for drinking. Like, it would be of benefit to have bottled water, potable water, boiled water for drinking. But filling the bathtub with water is very necessary because, I mean, if you're new to Texas, or maybe if, I don't know, you're watching this video from a place where you've never experienced power failure like this, if their water pumps do not work, your toilet will not be able to flush because the tank will not refill with water. And it's a sanitary issue. It can cause health problems, and obviously nobody wants their toilet to be full of poo. So filling the bathtub with water is a super helpful step to just dealing with the type of issues that might arise in a situation without power. So all of that being said, the good news is, based on a couple of these articles that I've read, it looks like there will probably not be a winter storm this year. So the first one we're going to be taking a look at here is, this is KXAN, local news, and this is a recent article. They released it in November 18th, so that was just 10 days ago. And they were basically, I'm not going to play the video because I don't want to get copyright flagged by them, but basically the article is just explaining that last winter was really bad. There was something called a La Nina weather pattern, which I'm not going to get into all the details of that, but it basically just means that us here in Texas, we can expect a warmer and drier winter. And the interesting thing is that that's the exact type of weather that we had last year. They were saying that there was probably going to be another warmer, drier winter, and then we had that extreme winter snowstorm. So there's kind of a couple of different schools of thought to this, but one of the ideas is that climate change is causing issues with this thing called the jet stream, and it's causing it to be a little less tight and a little less well regulated than it typically is. So you get these cold Arctic winds up north that they call the polar vortex that can come down as far south as Texas, and that's kind of what happened last winter. So that being said, on the whole, it's statistically probable that this will be a warmer and a drier winter than the one that we had last winter, or just than winters that we have in general, which means, you know, less freezes, less snow, and that's good for gardeners, depending on what you're growing. Obviously, if you're growing peach trees, you just need it to be cold in general. But as you can see here, last winter and this winter had the same La Nina pattern, and so what does that tell us? Not a lot at all. It tells us that we can generally expect warmer and drier winter weather, which we're actually seeing, and I'm going to get to that in a minute when I look at the 10-day forecast. But you know, there's probably a case to be made that, you know, this polar vortex, this jet stream here that is releasing the polar vortex, being so unpredictable as of late, whether that's attributed to climate change or something else, is a problem, and could pose that whether it's winter 22, winter 23, or winter 25, we might be facing another large Texas winter storm, which is an issue for all sorts of reasons, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So I think that's pretty much all this article had to say. Obviously, there's more data in here, and I'm really skimming it. You got some historic snowfall and precipitation summaries, and as I had stated, it's interesting. It seems that we've gotten more snowfall in the past couple of years. So this video was explaining exactly what I've said about the jet stream and the polar vortex. This one here is from the Houston Chronicle. This is about the Farmer's Almanac. So the Farmer's Almanac said that, it claims to have predicted Texas's winter storm that we had in February, and it says another one is forecast for 2022. Now, I watched a whole bunch of videos about the Farmer's Almanac, and I understand that it's not quite like astrology level guessing, but there's not a lot of information behind where they're getting these forecasts from. So you can read the article. I'll have all of this linked in the description, but you know, the bit I've highlighted here says that the Farmer's Almanac is summarizing that this winter will be, quote, really chilled to the bone with normal precipitation. So that kind of sounds like another winter storm, but again, I'm not sure that the Farmer's Almanac is the most reliable source of weather prediction. That being said, we should be really gracious to meteorologists and those who predict the weather, because when you get right down to it, if we didn't have them, we have no idea at all when hurricanes were coming or when any type of inclement weather was coming. And I can't imagine a harder profession than predicting the future. But we got that one, and then over here, this is Spectrum News. I don't know how reliable this news station is, but they're basically saying kind of what I'd stated earlier, that a La Nina winter usually delivers drier and warmer weather than average conditions. So it's kind of odd that we had that bad winter freeze last year. And one of the interesting things I wanted to point out is the average first freeze dates. So here in Austin, it says that the average first freeze date is December 1st, which I thought was interesting because I uploaded a YouTube video last winter. You can see the date on this is December 3rd, 2020, where I was explaining that it was the first freeze of the year on December 1st. And so I wrapped up my plants with all sorts of bubble wrap and burlap to try to keep them safe. I had the olive tree, the brown turkey, fig tree at the last house. And you can see that forecast there. It's the 30s, upper 40s later on in the week, and 27 that morning. So pretty cold. And, you know, throughout the video, I mean, there's not a lot to see here. I was just going around explaining my process for wrapping up my backyard garden bed with bubble wrap and burlap and some of the winter gardening plants that I was growing. But the reason I bring this up is that the 10-day forecast for Austin is out on the Weather Channel. And if you take a look at it, you can see here, today's the 28th, and the highs and lows for the rest of the week, we don't have anything. I mean, 40s tomorrow, 40s again on the 8th, nothing even close to freezing all the way up to December 12th. So maybe that's a little bit of the La Nina weather pattern that some of those other articles were talking about. Light precipitation or none. It has been raining the past couple of days, but like almost all like 60s and 70s. This is classic Texas fall when I was growing up, or winter, I should say, in December, where it could be, you know, you leave the house and it's 60 degrees, you get to work and it's 80 degrees, and you're sweating through your long sleeves. So I actually finished recording and editing the video when I found the article that I was initially looking for. This is probably the most important article of the video, not necessarily as it pertains to 2022, but as it pertains to winter storms in general. So this is from, I guess, K Houston. Not familiar with this news outlet, but this news outlet has a video in here, again, which I'm not going to play. The article claims that 4 minutes and 37 seconds is how close the Texas power grid came to a complete failure. So this was a statement that ERCOT released, looks like February 24th, so right after the storm. And the CEO, Bill Magnus, came out and said the following, that this was a devastating event, which is obviously devastating because power is essential to our civilization. The article says, I don't know that this is a direct quote from Bill Magnus, that ERCOT officials said controlled outages were implemented to prevent a statewide blackout. The storm was unlike anything Texas had experienced before. 356 generators were knocked offline during the storm. The video claims that that's because those generators were not winterized, so their electrical infrastructure was not equipped to deal with the low temperatures. And that this led to millions of Texans being in the dark for a record 70.5 hours. The video goes on to say, and I'm sure it's stated somewhere else within this article, that the Texas power grid, obviously, I mean, as the top of the article states, was 4 minutes and 37 seconds away from complete failure. So I have a couple of friends who work at various power companies, both here in Austin and elsewhere in Central Texas, and I heard the same line being said again and again in the weeks following the winter storm. I have one friend who, I don't know if he was being paid quadruple or quintuple overtime, who was doing 16, 20-hour shifts just to manage power in his part of the state. I know that based on the information in the earlier part of this video, it is very likely that there will not be any type of winter storm like what we saw last year in 2022. However, the fact of the matter is the Texas power grid is very ill-equipped to deal with these storms, and to the extent of my knowledge, our governing bodies and ERCOT have done very little to equip the grid to be more sturdy in the event of future storms. If they do not, it's very obvious what might happen based on what this article is saying. It is possible for the power grid to go down for a number of weeks, potentially months. Now, obviously, this would be a gigantic disaster. I'm in no way saying that this is something that could happen in 2022. Rather, let me restate that. I am in no way saying that this is something that is likely to happen in 2022. But obviously, this could happen. My wife and I have purchased a generator, and because our water filtration isn't very good, we've also purchased a whole bunch of bottled water. I highly recommend you guys get a 5-liter, well, obviously if you live in Central Texas or anywhere in the state that's on the ERCOT grid, it might be in your best interest to generally get some bottled water, not even necessarily leading up to one of these storms, but just in case. I mean, there's all sorts of problems that can happen that would cause a problem like this. I remember in 2017 when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, I was in Austin, in my apartment complex in Northwest Austin actually, at the time. We were without power for 2 days. All the food in our freezer went bad, and disasters like this happen. There can be floods or any number of issues, even just a construction problem that would cause you to need, because again, I'll reiterate, I said this earlier in the video, if you have no power, your water pump won't work as well. I mean, I know that people can be on different types of water systems that don't rely on electric pumps, but if you live in the city, I could almost guarantee your water system uses an electric pump. And so it's just a good idea to be prepared. You can't go wrong by getting some bottled water. And I mean, if you don't drink them, I mean, who doesn't drink bottled water? But if you have no use for them, you can give them out to homeless people. Beyond that, it's essential for the possibility of some sort of issue where you don't have water. I mean, I'm not going to say how much to get in this video. You can do the math yourself. People need 2 to 3 bottles of water a day. This bottle here is 17-ounce bottle. I mean, one person having 2 of those a day, which is probably less than you should be having for a week, that's no problem. For 2-3 months, you can do the math yourself. It's probably also a good idea to get some canned food. My wife and I have a ton of canned soup and canned beans in our pantry, and we use it all the time. It makes cooking a lot easier, and if you don't use it, you can always donate it to a food pantry in the spring. But in the event that we have a storm like this, it would be a good idea to have that so that you can have some source of food for your loved ones. At this point, in the past 2 years, I've seen food shelves at H-E-B, Target, the gas station, etc. totally picked clean. And I'm referring to March 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, and again in February 21 during the winter storm. At this point, I feel like it's become a pattern that we can't ignore, that the supply chain is just unreliable, and if you're not prepared, you are going to be in an ugly position. I've known many of my affluent friends who live in very nice parts of town, basically begging for water, boiled water, showers, rides, who were in positions where their homes were going below 32 degrees inside and they were burning their books to stay warm. This is in Texas, in America, first world country. I know we think this kind of stuff doesn't happen, but it does. And so, to reiterate, what does that mean for this winter? I'm in no way saying that this winter is going to be some horrible blackout situation. It probably won't. It will probably be a very not white Christmas. It will probably be very warm. And I right now have a whole bunch of cabbages and broccoli growing in my backyard. I think they're going to do great. I don't think they're going to get freezing rain or snow down, but they might. And if they do, I think that you can watch some of my other videos where I discuss garden frost protection and protection from freezing rain and from snow and all these other things. But as far as a disaster is concerned, I highly recommend getting a generator of some kind. My wife and I have a gas and propane generator that we got at Home Depot. It was $600, $700, $800. I'll post a link in the description. And it does about 5,500 kilowatt output, so it can power a fridge and like a space heater. You'll definitely want to buy a space heater, of course. And you don't have to get a gas generator. They make these rechargeable lithium-ion generators. I'm not exactly sure how they work, but if whatever you buy, just make sure that it has the same type of output that your space heater can take. So many space heaters require, I don't know off the top of my head, but 1,000, 2,000 kilowatt hours. You're gonna want a decent generator, not a small one for tools, or like a tool battery or something. So yeah, just stay safe, y'all. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the description. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again for watching.